You can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this saying before. In this week's video, we're going to talk about how that saying actually perfectly sums up the Vancouver real estate market when it comes from a construction and a home building supply scenario. We're also going to look at the latest jobs report and look at what's happening with the construction segment and how that's going to affect the real estate market moving forward throughout the year. Real quick, before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds like something you're interested in and you wanted to talk with me one-on-one about your situation, you can book me in the Calendly link below. But regardless, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, lots to cover, so we're just going to jump right into it. Canada lost 45,000 jobs in the construction sector in July. Most of that in BC, in Ontario, in Quebec. So essentially, out of all the segments, all the employment industries out there, construction had the biggest job loss. So essentially what this means is that builders are scaling back, not building as much, cutting jobs. When we're in the middle of a housing crisis, this is obviously a very scary pattern. And I say pattern because we've lost now over 70,000 jobs since January in construction. We just came off of another Bank of Canada interest rate increase, which further increases the cost to borrow, not only for us at a consumer level, but for builders to finance projects as well. So this is not a good outlook. And the construction industry in general, this is going to be a thorn in our side as we try and take on this housing supply issue. Now, the reason for that is from a labor perspective, we just don't have enough people that are interested in getting into the trades here in Canada to be able to fulfill what we need to fulfill from a housing supply and an employment perspective. So, for example, it's expected that we're going to have 300,000 construction workers, tradespeople, 300,000 jobs that are going to need to be filled over the next decade because of people retiring in the construction sector. Now, the average age of a construction worker in Canada, it's over 40. Now, that may not seem like a very high number or an old age, if you will, but we have to keep in mind in construction, very taxing on the body. The retirement age is much younger as well, and we just don't have as many younger folk, if you will, getting into trades, getting into construction. And understandably so. We're living in a city that has such high cost of living. You know, kids are going through school, they're learning things such as coding in elementary school. They're looking towards careers in software and tech and some of these high paying careers where you pretty much need that if you want to create a future in Vancouver. So as it stands today, losing jobs in the construction sector, meaning that builders are basically slowing down their projects, stopping their projects, not enough work for them. And this is obviously, it ties right into the cost of borrowing and the cost of construction for these builders. So we just come off of another Bank of Canada rate increase. And we had a bit of a pause earlier this year, and it felt in the market like there was some more renewed confidence among consumers, amongst builders. But now things are up in the air again. Now, the other thing that came out in the last week, which ties perfectly into this, is from the Canadian Homebuilders Association. They do a quarterly report where they poll their members, and basically 2/3, 67% of builders are building less units this year than they have in years past. So again, housing starts are down. Builder confidence is down as well. This is both on the single family side and on the multifamily side. If we look at it from a confidence index, if you will, so the CHBA, they have their own sort of index where they assess builder confidence. It's essentially been cut in half if we look at the first half of 2022 to where we're at now in 2023. So builder confidence is down on the single family side, on the multifamily side. The costs have gone up astronomically for labor, construction, materials. Obviously, financing costs have gone up as well. And every time that happens, margins get eaten up. So again, 67% are building less. I believe it's 22% are entirely cutting projects. 22% of builders are saying they're canceling projects entirely. So, we're going to have quite a struggle trying to keep up with immigration and trying to get that housing supply number to where it needs to be. Now, I mentioned off the top, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And the reason why this ties so well into real estate, what's happening, is we are seeing changes at the municipal level, at the zoning level. We're seeing changes where cities are trying to make it easier for builders to build multiple units. But at the end of the day, if it's going to cost so much for labor, it's going to cost so much to borrow money, and the margins are getting eaten up, the risk is no longer worth the reward. And so builders hold off, they invest into other types of projects. Perhaps they start purchasing commercial real estate, which doesn't cost as much. It's more of a, for example, if you get into warehousing, industrial, a lot of these projects or a lot of these buildings, they're just shells. So you don't have to worry about as much in terms of cosmetic. It's just strictly a driver of cash, and cash is king. I would say cash flow is king. So these residential projects, when they take 5-6 years to be able to put up a tower, you're already carrying the time risk. Builders are feeling that. And when there's uncertainty in terms of cost, in terms of labor, most builders out there will tell you that finding the right labor, finding enough labor, quality labor, is very difficult. And I'm sure the larger builders don't have as much of an issue with this because they constantly have a lot of projects. But if you're a builder out there that doesn't have a lot of projects constantly going on where you can keep workers busy all the time, they're going to move on to other better paying, more consistent level of projects. So again, construction jobs, we're losing them. People coming into the construction industry to fill jobs, less and less. We have more people in the construction industry right now over the age of 55 than we ever have. So they are nearing retirement levels. And this is actually going to tie in perfectly to what we're going to talk about next, which is the other key in the supply or the real estate issue, and that's immigration. So on the immigration side, I mentioned in the last video how Canada's former immigration minister, Sean Fraser, is now the housing minister, and Mark Miller, who was in charge of Indigenous relations, is now the immigration minister. We're just going to get to it because a lot of people are thinking, okay, the way to solve this housing supply issue is we need to have less people come into the country. Right? We have to close the borders. We have to shut the door on immigration. But based on what I just talked about, how we do not have the skilled labor here in Canada, we don't have people to fill the positions. We need to keep that gate open. And basically what's coming from the federal government is they're saying, look, if you think we're going to scale back on immigration targets, you're vastly incorrect. In fact, we expect them to either stay the same or we're going to increase the targets. So we're going to see more and more newcomers come to Canada, and we need that. Now, what they're also going to do is some of these contractor type roles, electrician, plumber, trades, they're going to add them to an express, basically their express system where they're going to help expedite getting these folks into Canada. So I think we are going to see a more targeted type of immigration where we're bringing in the trades so that we can support the level of building that we need. So when you look at this from kind of a large angle, if you think of a boat, we don't just have one hole to fill. Housing is not the only hole we need to fill here. It's, I would say that it's the most important hole that we need to fill, but everything is tied together. And so there's no easy solution of just closing the borders or let's just flip a switch and build more homes. I mean, at the end of the day, you can put the tools in front of the builders, but if the numbers don't make sense, they're not going to drink. So immigration, expect that to increase. If you're wondering, where we were at last year when it comes to housing supply and providing enough houses, last year, I believe the number was we built around 200,000 homes. We had about 1 million people come into the country. An average household size, heads under a roof, just over 2. So not even building enough for people coming into the country, and that's not even factoring in people, Canadian residents today, people that are looking for homes for themselves, perhaps they're moving out of the family home. So we are so far behind when it comes from a housing supply perspective. And it's not like builders are going to flip a switch and they're just going to start building. Sentiment is down amongst the home builders. They're holding back, they're scaling back, cutting projects. 1/3 of home builders actually reported having to help buyers close on their properties, on their pre-sales that they had purchased in their developments. Now that's a staggering number. It's not talked about a lot in this industry, and it's not outwardly going to be talked about a lot by builders, of course, because it's not something that they can provide to buyers en masse. But it just goes to show you the state of the market right now. Now, as always in these videos, I like to tie them back, scale it back to the real estate market from a feet on the street perspective. And especially you as a consumer, you may be a potential buyer, you may be a potential seller. My advice to you, if you're a buyer and you hear all of this data that I'm putting on the table, and the data that I'm basically suggesting to you is that there's no way that we are going to be able to keep up with housing starts, housing units. There's no way we're going to be able to win this supply game, not in the short term, not in the midterm. You know, real estate, it is driven by supply and demand. My advice to you, though, is don't just take my message, my thesis on this, and it has been since I first bought real estate, is that prices will, over the long term, they are going to have to continue to go up. Real estate is a tangible asset that we don't have enough of today. We're not going to have enough of in the future. So for me, the short term, interest rate hikes, whatever they might be, the short term is going to affect real estate. Yes, up and down prices in the short term, but in the long term, prices will continue to grow. For yourself, if you're a buyer, do your own research as well. Cancel out the noise. And in fact, I'm going to include my channel into part of the noise, right? Because I'm giving you information from one angle. You may want to take information from another angle. If you have a trusted resource in real estate, talk to them. Even if you're not ready to buy, even if you're someone that, maybe you have a 1-year plan, you want to get into the market, start the conversations now. If you don't have someone you can talk to like that, you can reach out to me. We can discuss, but you also want to do your own research and come up with your own thesis. Come up with what you believe is going to happen with the real estate market. I always say for buyers, chances are you're not buying to flip. You want to buy, you want to hold for a long period of time. You really want to cancel out the short-term noise. You want to make sure that you can afford the payments on the mortgage. You're very likely looking at a fixed rate mortgage today, so you have some stability and constancy in terms of what you're going to pay. And if that makes sense for you, given your living situation and you want to get into the market, there isn't a bad time to do it. There will always be outside noise and statistics. I'm someone who I consider myself a bit of a stats junkie, but I'll be the first person to admit that you can find any statistic you want out there that is going to meet your narrative, whether you are bullish and positive about the real estate market, whether you're more negative about it. You can cherry pick a stat that's going to back up your thesis or how you feel about real estate. So again, go to your trusted sources. If you don't have those connections, start building those connections. Do your own research as well and come to your own conclusions based on what you know about the city and what you know about the economy, what you know about economics, whatever it might be. Everyone has valuable insight to bring to this, and just do your own thinking. Talk to experts. If the time is right for you financially, again, in Vancouver, I don't believe that there is a bad time to buy real estate. I bought my first property in 2005. It was the best thing I ever did. Could I have done things differently? Could I have sold more frequently? Could I have upgraded properties? There were so many things I could have done differently, but I think that's what makes me a better real estate agent today, is I can share all of those things that I could have done differently, and I can make sure that the people I work with don't make the mistakes that I did. So there you have it, guys. I realize I'm rambling a bit and I got a little bit off topic, but I hope in this video you got a good line of sight into what exactly is happening in the construction sector what's happening with the workforce when it comes to construction and home building supply, and then obviously what the home builders are feeling, how they're feeling about projects today and in the future. If you did enjoy this video, I'd love it if you could hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can learn from it as well. And if you like this weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. And lastly, once again, if you're in the Vancouver area, you're considering buying or selling, or you just want to talk about real estate with someone, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below, or just shoot me a text, give me a call, send me an email, whatever works best for you. I'd be happy to chat with you one-on-one. But I want to thank you again for joining me this week, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.